Hello, everybody. This is Bobby from Mobot. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's one of the first week into Circuit Breakers Part 2, not Circuit Breaker Part 2 lah. Okay, so this is Heightened Alert, Phase 2 Heightened Alert. Okay, so today we actually have two very special guests. As you can see from the poster and all this, today is a very exciting live. Actually, we are doing something that we have not done before. This is an interview over the air. Okay, so today actually I have a returning guest. I also have a special guest. He's actually the president of Singapore Cycling Federation. Okay, so before we start, maybe we can just give you a brief intro about what we're going to talk about. So basically, SCF, is Singapore Cycling Federation. It's actually under Sports SG. Later, I'll get my guest, Dr. Seong, who is the president, to introduce themselves and give us a bit of lay down, because I think generally us cyclists, we don't, even if we know, we don't know much, because usually there are a lot of amateur cyclists, or maybe the road cyclists. You like to know more, later we will ask them as well. Okay, so we also have Mr. Steven. He's a returning guest. You see, all our guests all come back. So he's the VP of Education and Safety in SCF. Okay, so he will be sharing with us some of the aspects as well. Okay, we actually have a lot of this to talk about. Okay, so first off, okay, today is a special live. We have SCF partnering with us. Anytime you guys want to ask any questions, okay, you can just key in into the comment section. Actually, we can see some of the comments. You see, we have a hi, Bobby. Okay, hello. So anytime you guys have any comments or questions for us about cycling and all this, okay, do feel free. You can type it down in this section. Okay, so let's introduce our two guests of the day. Okay, so we have with us Dr. Heng and Mr. Steven. Okay, hello. Okay, welcome.
Hello.
Okay, so Dr. Heng, will you give us a brief introduction? Okay, who you are, maybe your experience with cycling, and also, what is SCF? What is Singapore Cycling Federation?
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for spending your time with us. I hope you can hear me quite clearly. So my name is Dr. Seong. Actually, it's Hing Seong Chen. I'm a volunteer, firstly, at SCF, along with Stephen. We have quite a few committee members, and we are all volunteers. I've been volunteering in SCF, Singapore Cycling Federation, for the past 7 years. I started off as the General Secretary for 2 years, and I've been the President for the past 5 years. So what is Singapore Cycling Federation? I think it's something that you may have heard of, but you're not very sure what we do. Some people think that we are linked to the government, or we make policies, we do rules. I think now with all the controversy going around, some people come to us and they think that we are actually making rules. But let's go back to maybe the basics long ago. Singapore Cycling Federation actually started in 1958. So that's a very, very long time ago. We are actually only a society. So we are registered with the Registry of Society. And we were recognized by Sports SG, which at that time was called Singapore Sports Council, as a national sports association. And our job is actually the promotion and development of the sports of cycling. So when we say the sports of cycling, we're talking about actually high performance cycling. So it's in the aspects of bike trials, BMX, mountain bike, road bike, and track riding. So we were actually formed as a national sports association, no different from, for example, swimming association or tennis association or sailing association. So our main job is actually to promote sports at the high level for Singapore, to go to Olympics, to go to SEA Games and Asian Games. On top of that, we are also an institution of public character. So that's quite hard to get, because we are well organized, we're well run. We have been recognized as an institution of public character. So SCF itself is affiliated to the UCI. So I think most of you have heard about UCI. That will be our International Cycling Federation. So the job of SCF in Singapore actually is to sanction races, local cycling events, and we sanction events and make sure that, for example, all the races that are held here in compliance with UCI international regulations. So that's a real background of how SCF actually started. But I think a lot has changed in the past few years. we have taken more and more responsibility, and our constitution over the years, in the past 40 years, has changed a lot. So as a summary, I think now we have 5 main mandates. The first one is very important, and that is to inspire Singapore's spirit through competitive sports. That's our original reason why we started, and that is to, to basically organize competitive high-performance cycling and initiate representation in all the major games like your SEA Games and your Asian Games. And our latest program that we're doing is the Pro Cycling SG. So that's high-performance cycling. We're trying to start a continental team. We have a dream for Singapore. We want to bring, a Singaporean to the SEA Games and further into the Asian Games, and one day maybe to go to the Pro Tour, and we have a plan to go to Tour de France. I think that will take quite a long time, right? So that's our first mandate. Our second one is has not changed either, and that is to do local competitions. So before the COVID lockdown, I think we've been quite successfully organizing and sanctioning about 20 to 30 events a year. We have our whole OCBC, which is our main sponsor, the OCBC National Championships. There are the time trial, the road bike races, the downhill mountain bike. We haven't started on BMX or track because we do not have those facilities in Singapore yet. But hopefully we'll move there one day. All right. And our third mandate would be, I would say, the teaching of cycling, right? The provision of developmental pathways for the young and developing cyclists. So about 3 years ago, we started something very new, and that was the Scf Cycling Academy. And this is the first time we started a cycling academy. We were very fortunate to have our main sponsor, OCBC, behind that. And it offers a talent development pathway for school students all the way from primary school onwards. And it's all in the disciplines of BMX, mountain bike, and road. And hopefully with this talent identification, we can pick up more young children who have potential to reach higher levels of cycling, and we can pick them up in school. Okay, so beyond that, the 2 newest mandates that we have adopted in the past few years this is in response to the changing landscape of cycling in Singapore. And one of them is actually safe cycling. So in 2014, when I first joined with Stephen, we started the Singapore Cycle Safe program. And this is a very important thing. The Singapore Cycle Safe program has 4 main components. One is to promote cycling for all. The second one is to promote safe cycling. And the third one is to start cycling in young children. And the last one is to promote opportunities for upgrading of your cycling skills. So our SCF Academy actually was started in the Turf Club. We actually have an academy there now. Unfortunately, with the COVID, it's been all the programs have been tailed down, and the coaching is down into groups of 5 and personal coaching. But we have reached out to almost 20 or 30 schools, and we have at the moment about 60 to 80 students who are on the program, and this has been happening over the past 5 years. A bit more about the Cycle Safe program. It's a program that was based on the guidelines from UCI. We took lesson plans from there, and the program is modeled over something very similar in Singapore called the Swim Safe certification. I think we will remember when we were children, even until now, this Swim Safe program is still existing, is to teach everyone how to swim. And so hopefully we want to change it into a way of life for everyone, where cycling becomes a core skill for everybody. So, we teach them how to cycle. The first lesson will be how to cycle, and then how to cycle in areas where it's traffic free. And then we move on to park connectors, and then to how to cycle safely on roads as well, and how to cycle in a group and in events. And finally, I think the last part of the lesson is teaching you how to do commuting, how you can cycle. So the cycle program that we offer, the Cycle Safe program we offer, has level 1 to 4. Okay, so that's the 4th mandate. And the last one, I think, is something that we will all be talking about tonight. We've expanded our focus to address concerns of the general cycling community. I think lately, a lot of people have come to SCF because they feel that SCF is the conduit, is the pathway where they can communicate with the government like LTA, AMAP, and the traffic police. And I think they're correct because we are making quite a lot of headways. I think both sides have been contacting us, and we have been trying our best to help bring the cycling community into discussions with the relevant authorities. And hopefully, we can do more of that in the future as well. And I think that's also partly why we're here today with Stephen and we're in this program. So that's a good short summary. Hopefully I didn't bore all of you. Thank you.
Definitely. So, as Dr. Xiong just said, actually there are a lot of exciting things that SCF is doing. SCF is not somewhere where cyclists come, complain or what. No, actually they have high performance sport. Recently, I hear some of our customer or some people in the Facebook group, they say, hey, why SCF never? Guys, we have AMAP. We also have different LTA and all this. Okay, so same as other sports organization, actually, they are in charge of all these high performance sports as well. Okay, so there's something very, very interesting that Dr. Xiong just shared with us. Actually, they wish to join, have a Singaporean in Tour de France. I think, wow, this is so exciting because we have watched movies since young. We have heard about it, read in the news since young about Tour de France, all the champions. Maybe soon Singapore will have a Singaporean there. Okay, so before we get into that, of course, as we said earlier, any questions, right now we have a question by Samantha Oi, but we'll answer it later on. But before that, actually, our returning guest, Mr. Stephen, last time he was here, he was actually representative of another organization, Safe Cycling Task Force. Today he's here. He wears many hats, he likes to say. He wears many hats, but at each occasion, there's a specific task that he's doing. So, Mr. Stephen, will you please let us know, what is your role in SCF and how is it different from your other day-to-day activities?
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thanks, Mobot, for having me here again today. I think in SCM, my role or designation is actually VP for Safety Education. So I look into the safety aspects and education of cycling. But of course, due to my other role, so I'm very much into more of the community side. Dr. Hin or Dr. Shen just now have already mentioned about our Cycle Safe program or this, what do we offer or this, right? So I'm not going to go that again. But so very much, and because of my other role, so I'm trying to be a link between say LTA, AMAP. I'm also sitting on board AMAP. So trying to be the link there to link up SCF and the rest of the agencies or even the community. So hopefully, this help. I mean, my role in SCF helps in this area. Of course, also certain area like especially when it comes to cycling safety. So we are talking about media, that kind of thing. So I'm lucky that actually Dr. Xiong actually tried to let me handle the part of it when it comes to community cycling safety, that kind of thing. So more or less that's my role in SCF. But Xiong they all are the one that actually do much more. I mean, you heard him just now. All the thing is all under him.
Actually, if we see in the news recently, Mr. Stephen, your name appear, I think, more than celebrity. It's always every time interview.
I hope not. I mean, if it's for a good thing, it's okay. But then,
it's interview lah. It's interview. So of course, this topic we'll get to it. Recently there is also a viral video of cyclists by Channel 5. Okay, one of the cyclist group actually posted this on their Facebook page. It has garnered 129,000 views to date. For video Singapore cycling, so many views. I think we will also want maybe competition kind of video to hit this kind of view count. But this one is an interview, so we will talk about that in a bit. But first of all,
is this interview going to get 129,000 views?
This one definitely. This one will hit beyond that. Yeah, so today actually we have 3 discussion points. First of all, we will talk about the high performance side of things. This one will be handled mostly by Dr. Xiong. We'll talk about more about, how we are going to have that Tour de France dream. And also, if you read on the news, actually if the ASEAN Games still goes on, I think ASEAN Game or SEA Games, we are aiming towards a BMX medal as well. I think this is more hip, a bit more trendy. And also next up, we will talk about definitely the social media videos that are going viral. Everybody is talking about it. Roads SG every day. I'm sure Mr. Steven and Dr. Xiong, you guys, when you use Facebook, you see this every day as well. All of them commenting and saying a lot of stuff about cyclists. Yeah, so we will talk about that shortly. Okay, so let us start off. First off, let's talk about the most crucial part. Everybody is waiting for this. Okay, so Dr. Xiong, as you shared earlier, the Singapore Cycling Federation is planning, to participate in Tour de France and achieving a gold medal at the Asian Games by 2030. So, would you care to share with us what is the progress so far and whether COVID has actually halted or did COVID help in any way to let the people that are participating focus, or is there a hindrance in the progress?
Yeah, I think our road to Tour de France, our road to cycling excellence, has never been easy. And moving forward, it will not be easier either. There have always been challenges. Be it one kind of challenge or another, it's always there. When we started many years ago, like 5 years ago, we didn't have a team at all. SCF at that time, now I feel very confident to say that we have actually a very good committee and a very good secretariat. That means my team behind that's working at SCF is fantastic. They're very dedicated and they're working very hard, although most people can't see what's going on because you only see successes and you only see failures. But as with all things, everyday work, you don't see it. Like when you bring up children, you see them when they graduate, but you don't see the amount of hard work that you put in for the past 18 years that you take to grow them through primary school, secondary school, university. So it's the same thing. It's actually a labor of love. And sometimes a lot of things that we do is because we do feel for all these young kids out there. Actually, a lot of them have a lot of dreams, and we are just very happy to live our own dreams through these young kids. So the same with our Pro Cycling SG. This is something that took us a good 6 to 7 years to set up, and so many hands actually helped it. It came with our first medal going back, and that was from Kelvin Sim. He won a gold medal in the SEA Games and in the track event, and then there was Iwei as well and Elias, and so we won our first 3 medals in the 2017 SEA Games. And as with any sports association, you must of course prove yourself if you want to grow, you want to get more funding. And very fortunately, there are a lot of dedicated MC members who at that time when we started, they put in their own money because there was no funding. They put in their time, to help all these athletes grow. And through time, I think we have grown. And I think the endearing spirit of wanting to do better and wanting to excel will definitely take us through these COVID times. I don't think it will be a problem. We will definitely face challenges, but we will definitely get through it. So since that time, Sports SG has become very confident and with our management style, and they've been very kind to us to support us. So we've just started embarked on the 10-year program called Pro Cycling SG. So Pro Cycling SG is the first time Singapore, well, actually it's the second time, but it's the first time Singapore is going to build up a pro-continental team that will try to bring our riders to a higher level. As with all pro cycling teams, I think the most important thing is you need someone who's been there. And I'm looking around, none of us been there. I've never been there as well. So that came in the form of a high performance director, a technical director, and we managed to find one after searching for 3 years. We interviewed almost 10, I would say almost world-class technical directors, and we finally very, very fortunately found Shane Bannon. I think he was in the papers a few weeks ago. He comes with a wealth of experience, and he's actually worked on the World Tour before with a team called Greenage, or in the Tour de France, and in the Giro it was called Greenage Cycling or Oracle Greenage at some time. And they have actually brought riders all the way to Tour de France. They've won several stages. It's amazing if you've watched it. And before that, Shane Bannon himself started something like what Singapore started at the time, and that was in Australia 20 years ago, when they did not have a very organized pathway for high-performance cycling. And he started the Australian Institute of Cycling, and he grew it to such an extent that they, at the peak, they in 2004 Athens Games, they won a record of 6 gold medals at the Olympics, and even more silver and bronze. I mean, at that point, you don't count silver and bronze, although they are fantastic. But he's a man who's been there and done it, and we are very fortunate that he's with us now. He's in our staff, and he's something that really, from what I can see, is really inspiring the community now, because there's a lot of excitement among cyclists. Because in the past, when we say, I'm going to organize a training session, they look at me and say, yeah, they can ride faster than me. But here, you have a person who's been there, and his experience is, not disputable. And I think he's the right man for the job, and he's the one who's going to bring us much further. And we're very happy to work with him. So moving forward, even now, we are very fortunate that for the first time, we have riders in our development squad, in our training squad, and we even have an opportunity to select our best riders to send to SEA Games and to Asian Games. So the game has changed, and this is a game-changing moment, and I think this will develop over the next few years. Of course, I think there's a lot more work. We still need to find more funding. We need to find, sponsors, and we still need to find talented riders. But I think it's a big game plan. Just now, the mandate that we spoke about, 5 things, we need every part of it to be worked on by different parts of our team. Because at the end of the day, when everything works, then you're going to find that talent that comes from schools. You're going to find, that talent that maybe a parent will say, okay, I think it's safe for my child to cycle because the roads are not so dangerous anymore. We'll let him cycle. Then you'll find, more talent. Or you have, when our national team goes out for riding, they don't feel like, it's dangerous. They can't ride 2 abreast, or there's a car coming to very close to them. Because I think at the end of the day, we still need training grounds. Singapore is one of those places where spaces are very constrained. So even more, we need to share the spaces that we have, especially with COVID the lockdown nowadays. We do not have the opportunity to go overseas like Malaysia or Thailand, where we usually train. So I think just a few weeks ago, just 2 weeks ago, I think there was a video that was on one of the social media as well, and it showed this cyclist cycling behind a motorcycle, and he was. There were lots of comments, and suddenly you started seeing, actually this time there were a lot of positive comments, and they were saying, you should be grateful to this guy. That's Kelvin Sim, our gold medalist. He's going to Hong Kong next week to actually race for Singapore, and he's, training on the road, doing motor pacing, which is one of those things that it's a known kind of training thing. So sometimes we also need to step up to do more public education and get the word out there that, we need to support our national athletes as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think right now, it sounds like a very, very exciting time for the sport of cycling. Since we have this ground up initiative, sorry, not ground up, but rather from young all the way, they have this pathway to train to become experts, and they also have a pro coach now to guide them there as well. So we keep hearing about the word, high performance cycling. Dr. Cheong, do you care to explain in layman terms? Very, very layman now, because some of our viewers, we are not so expert. So maybe in layman terms, how this is, sort of different to what we see. Sometimes we watch YouTube video of them racing in the velodrome. I think that's what you call it, correct? The velodrome. But how is high performance cycling, different from this?
Okay, so I think there are many aspects to high performance cycling. Sorry, I'm not an expert. I'm going to try my best to explain. I wish I had Shane
No
here,
worries, layman terms.
or I had Adrian, our national coach here. But I mean, to me, I mean, I've been an athlete. I've been racing before. I've never reached high performance. When you say high performance, I think it's really, it becomes your whole lifestyle. You dedicate your life to training. So when you say high performance, there are many aspects. There's the athlete's aspect of high performance. So he becomes a professional athlete. He's racing full time. His training is his rest is as important as his training. So we want our high performance athletes to be full time because they can't hold a job, 8 to 5. They're tired, and then after work, you ask them to train another 20 hours. It's very difficult because in the real high performance world where they are either be swimming or table tennis. I mean, or they're training. The ideal athlete will train full time and rest as well, and he will have a coach, and that coach will belong to a system like maybe SCF, and that whole thing becomes a high performance platform. Yeah. So what we are trying to build now, because we are in a growing phase, is to build this pathway, which is going to be a high performance pathway. So it goes all the way to the top, to the bottom. It starts at the bottom with the athlete, then it goes to your coach, and your coach will be there. He will have support from other things, like you have a nutritionalist, and you will have physiotherapists, you have doctors, and the coach will have sub coaches, and they will have a program, and they'll be under a technical director who has a lot of experience, so that they'll build the whole system, and they can time it such that, okay, maybe your race is in 6 months time. You're going to start with your base phase, and then you're going to train more, and then you're going to build up. So there's a system in all the training, right? And above that, the coaches, okay, these guys are all your warriors out there. Then on top of them, you still need your admin staff, a very good dedicated admin staff, which we are also training in SCF. You need to handle your air flights. You need to handle all your for us, you need to handle all your, very specifically will be like, you need to qualify your riders, your athletes for races, because there's something called SNOC, which is the Singapore National Olympic Council. So you need to meet certain criteria so that they can go to race. You can't just honestly send anyone to a race. You must make sure that they are of a certain standard before Singapore says, okay, I'm going to pay for all your training, your air flights, and I'm going to send you there, and you're going to be training, and you're going to win there. You can't go there and lose so badly that it can be embarrassing sometimes. So there will be another admin level where you handle to make sure that the athletes don't have to worry about it, the coaches don't have to worry about it, and that will be your admin staff, and you'll handle everything that is related to high performance, from funding to approvals, to selecting, and to handling all the admin for the races. And on top of that, finally, old folks like us, we are the management committee. Looks like we're not doing anything, but actually we have to do a lot of hard decisions as well, because I think at the end of the day, funding is always limited. We have 5 disciplines, like I was saying before. There's BMX, there is mountain bike, there's road, there's track, and at the end, there's also bike trials. So we have to try and, cater the amount of funding for everybody. We need to select our races. And on top of that, our responsibility at the top would be to find, more funds, to raise funds, to go out to sponsors. And at the end of the day, also to make sure that the federation is well run, everything is tip top, so that, we get confidence from our regulators, and our regulators will then be able to contribute back, and invest in us. Because at the end of the day, there are so many sports associations. We are from under MCCY. There are also many charities. We have to really show why that money is well spent, because the same funds that come from MCCY also goes to an orphanage. It also goes to an old folks home, and they are important as well. So
Definitely.
Yeah, that's right. It's a very tough decision on where these funds go to. So every cent belongs to the taxpayer, and it has to be accounted properly. And I think that is the responsibility of the management committee, to make sure that everything we do is accountable. So high performance wise, I mean, in my mind, in my explanation, it's a whole system, and it's something that has to be, you have to regulate it all the time. You have to improve on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that
I think
explain a bit
definitely,
more?
yeah, now we are clearer. This also maybe explains the question that Benicia Woon has been asking. What is the possibility of being a professional cyclist in Singapore? So not anyhow one, not as Dr. Cheong said, it's not anyhow you suka today you come over, buy one bicycle, tomorrow you want to be pro cyclist. No, you definitely, there's a lot of hard work into it. You really have to be the best at your game, really be dedicated to the sport. And that's how you become a pro cyclist in Singapore. Yeah.
Do you want me to answer that question? No.
Yeah, this one I think is quite self-explanatory based on your response. Yeah.
I think it's always possible. It's always possible.
Yeah. So there's always hope.
But it's not an easy path. I think we featured Goh Chun Huat, our professional cyclist, and if you ask what's the possibility of being a professional cyclist, yes, it's always possible, but you must have the same grit and the same determination that person has, and then you'll get there. Yeah. So many things. First, you also need to have you have to be good enough to cycle. I think there's a certain physique and a certain base that you need to have, and on top of that, you need much more. I think it's not just cycling. Being a professional athlete in Singapore is actually the difficult thing. You could be a professional footballer, you could be a professional tennis player or ping pong player. I think a lot of it is sacrifice and belief in yourself, and you will need people who can support you, either your parents or your federation or the public. Yeah, it's not easy being a professional cyclist in Singapore.
So correct me if I'm wrong. I think
Yes.
the both the physical and mental health has to be very strong in order to be a pro. Yeah, it's not just physical. You are good at cycling, but then also I think the mental health, that the kind of tough training, the kind of path that you need to go through, it's not. I think it's not any cyclists like you and I can actually withstand. So I think both physical and mental health is very important.
I think maybe Benicia, right? The important thing for everyone to know is that there is a pathway. So the important thing is that there is a pathway. If there is someone who wants to do it, the pathway is there. You can write to us in SCF. We will show you how it's done. But generally, start young. Okay, always start young. If you are thinking of becoming a professional cyclist at 35 or 40, it's still possible, but it's going to be very difficult. Yeah, the best time to start them when they're young.
Which is why SCF, or what SCF is doing now. So I think Dr. Seong just explained all the high performance thing, the whole the whole plan, whole program. So which is what we are doing now. So if you want them, so people can approach SCF. So there's a whole lot of the program and the pathway that's been mapped out. And then now we have the Shen Bain, the director, race director here. So I think that's how.
Oh no, he froze.
Then if I may add on, if I may add on what Seong there. I mean, I'm not a high performance guy, but then if I may add on what I think the whole thing about we just now we were talking about sending Singapore cyclists to Tour de France or the next Asian game or whatever. I think this whole thing is not just a SCF dream or SCF role, right? I would look at it in a much wider angle and says that I think this is a whole nation's dream. It should be a whole nation's dream, right? Because why I say so? I think you heard from Dr. Seong just now that what are the things required? Funding, all kinds of support, admin staff, that kind of thing. So it's not what we volunteers in SCF do or our staff back end they are doing. But that's not enough. I think what we need, like for example, you need the parents to support. The parents to say support their kids and say, hey, I think you can go for this program, become a professional cyclist, that kind of thing, right? But if all the parents say, I think it's too dangerous to ride in Singapore, then we're not going to get cyclists, right? So this is one area. Next area is like, okay, so with all the things that we do, we get support from, say, the relevant government agencies, or even Sports SG. Then, of course, the private sector where we get fundings, that kind of thing. So I think at the end of the day, if you look at it at a bigger picture, you actually need the whole nation to come together to realize this dream. It's not just SCF, the few of us in the MC and try to, hey, we want to do this. I don't think that will work, right?
Definitely.
So, yeah, so that's why, take this opportunity to shout out and then say, hey, I think we need the whole nation to support and to actually come together to realize this dream.
True. Yeah. Okay. So definitely. Next up, actually, we have, this question actually relates. The next question actually relates to what we want to talk about. So, if you guys know, you can write out your questions. If it's just right, the topic that we are going to talk about, we'll flash it on the screen. And if not, later we'll answer it. But this is to both Dr. Xiong and Mr. Steven. So Dr. Xiong just said that there's a new launch of a new road safety campaign that is being launched by Singapore Cycling Federation. So right now, we are just wondering, what is new about it? How is it special? Maybe you can share with us. And also, Joseph Yek has also asked about this. Maybe he picked it up from what you said earlier. How will this be different since right now there's COVID going on? Will everything be online or so on?
Yeah, I think we had a meeting, Stephen and I, and a few other of our staff down in traffic police a while ago. It was a very good meeting for SCF itself, because it's the first time we actually went down to the police, station, and it was a bit scary. Okay, I tell you. Usually we end up in police station because we're in trouble. It's the same building. Last time when I lost my driving license, I had to go down there. So, but this time, we were ushered in like VIP, even about parking space for you to put your car in front. Then we went up and we met, Commissioner of the Police for education, safety, right, Stephen?
Yeah, Road Safety Branch, the CEO.
Road Safety Branch.
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, I think that's a breakthrough, because it's the first time we actually put a face to the emails that we used to send. And now we have a chat group, we communicate with each other quite often. And I think that is the way forward to a lot of different things. And we got invited to a few, poster unveiling on the new campaign about sharing the road, but not just for cyclists. I mean, it's a big thing. They have a campaign where it's, one part there's a cyclist, one part there's a pedestrian, another part there's a driver. And it's also the connections that we meet, because we also met the Singapore Road Safety Council president, and we also met like members of AMAP during some of the meetings. So I think this positive meeting are all very important, because nothing beats a face-to-face meeting and recognizing people, shaking hands. And that's the first part of it all, because the important thing is SCF does represent the views of a lot of people. A lot of people come to us, they write to us, and they tell us a lot of things that they want the government to know or the traffic police to know. So this gives us the opportunity to tell them. And the truth is, when we tell them that, actually they already know all that, but it's nice that we can tell them again, and we can stress the importance of certain things, and we can tell it from the aspects of a cyclist, because it's very different from cycling on the road and a bus passes you at, half a meter and you get a close pass, as compared to you're writing it on the email to them and say, hey, traffic police, today someone did a close pass at me. It's very different when we explain it to them, because we actually are cyclists, and all of us have definitely had a close pass before at some point in their life, and it's really quite scary. So we are coming out with some campaigns with them. I think it still needs approval, so please be patient. I can't tell you what they are until they are approved. I think that's what they state, right, Stephen? It's good for it to all be approved by a lot of different departments, and I think there will be poster ads. Hopefully we can print them out as well. It mostly will be online. I think the difference is that now that we are there as cyclists, we want these campaigns to be dual campaigns. I think that's something that we discuss. So very often we see campaigns that we put up, and it says down there, cycle like this, 2 meters from the side, stop at traffic lights, and but what we want to do is we want to come out with a campaign where at the same time it's a dual campaign. You reach out to cyclists, and you also reach out to drivers at the same time. So within the same campaign, within the same poster itself, there is something that you tell both sides. Okay, for example, if you tell cyclists to look up at the road, so you are more aware of the cars in front. Because cyclists like to keep their heads down, and they somehow love cycling into the back
they
of
think go faster.
yes, and they cycle into the back of a stationary vehicle, and we may think it's not serious, but we almost lost two cyclists, national cyclists, before because of this. And actually, there are many multiple accidents like this because cycling can be sometimes quite distracting, especially if you're cycling hard, you're looking down, and a car in front just decides to slow down. So it's very important that we look up, And then at the same time, if we put a poster like this, I think we should also put a poster to tell drivers to look out. So it will be a dual thing. So this is just an example. So you tell the cyclist look up, you tell the drivers you also need to look out. So the onus of any responsible campaign is never on one party. You can't tell the drivers, okay, cyclists will always say we want to penalize the drivers, and the drivers will always say we want to penalize the cyclists, but you're not going to get anywhere with that, because what you really need to do is you need to finally recognize that everybody needs to share the road, and you are responsible for everybody's safety. So you want to have a campaign that actually promotes fairness and promotes love if possible, and care, because at the end of the day, that's the only way we will feel safe on the road, because a car is still a car. It's really hard. Yep.
No, so I think to add on to what Xiong just mentioned, right, is that really the expectation from the public has to be correct, lah. So since we are on this, so I might as well just say that at the end of the day, I don't think SCF should become a messenger of the cycling group, then bring the message to the authorities. I don't think we should end up just at that position, right? So like what Xiong said, okay, cyclists come to us and then share their views, all this, and then we brought it up to the for example, traffic police or LTA, right? So but at the end of the day, we should not be just playing that messenger role. So what we really wanted was like to be able to actually really become that bridge between the public or the cycling group and the authorities, right? And we are able to actually help to mitigate whatever situation that the cycling groups are facing, or the cyclists are facing now, right? And not just playing the messenger role. Hey, traffic police, I'm telling you, so these are the problems they face. I think that they also know what are the problems, right? I think if you go online, you can see all the problems, but you don't need SCF to do that. But I think what we really need is that SCF able to help to work with the authorities or the agencies to actually help mitigate that situation. I think that is more important than just somebody to speak up for you and pass the message, right? So I believe this is where we are heading to, and then these are what we are trying to do here, more than just being the voices and what Xiong say. I mean, we also agree that there are always black sheep in all the different groups, right? Whether it's pedestrian, motorists, or cyclists, there are always black sheep. So now, what is really what we need to do is not to look at penalize who or no, and then it becomes the me versus you thing, like what we mentioned the last time. So which is not what I think everyone wants. So what we really want is that a conducive environment, a safe environment for all the users to be able to use. I think that's what we really want to achieve. At the end of the day, I'm sure everyone in the motoring group or the cycling group or even the authorities, this is what they really wanted, where we have a safe environment for everybody. Yeah. So I guess this is one of the role of SCF.
Correct. Definitely. Okay, so actually this brings us to our next part. Actually, recently, I'm pretty sure many of us have seen, headache already. Many of us have seen many viral videos. I don't know whether Roads SG or shared by their friends on cyclists behaving not so well on the roads. Maybe it might be going past the red light, almost having an accident or what. So actually, what do you guys think is the problem over here? Do you think that maybe just right, all these videos are capturing this inexperienced cyclists, or do you think that actually cyclists should be licensed. Whether some people in the groups have asked, should they pay road tax? Maybe pay road tax, they are more responsible. Then after that, they won't cycle like this. So this is a question to both of you guys. What do you think is happening right now? A lot of Singaporeans right now, especially drivers, all they think about is, hey, these cyclists, today hopefully don't meet them while I drive to work or whatever. So what do you think is this viral element in all these cyclist videos right now?
Okay. The president want to go first?
No, this is definitely the role for the safety man. I'll let Stephen say what he thinks is correct.
Okay. No, but must respect the president is here. Okay, I'm just joking. I think first of all, on the social media part, I personally feel that I think this social media thing is not doing the society a good thing. Okay. For especially the way I look at social media is I think we are getting more negative vibes on social media than positive things. That's one thing which I felt about social media, and I really hope that we can actually spread more positive vibes over social media than negative things. And the other thing is about such video, especially video on bad cyclists. I felt that is in a way blown out of proportion. Okay, then people start sharing because somehow people like to share a negative thing, and then so that I think in a way is being blown out of proportion. And the other thing about it is that you probably see a lot of bad cyclists on social media than so-called bad drivers. One reason is because most driver now has got in-car recording camera, but not all cyclists, right? We only get a handful of cyclists with that camera. Okay, so but if I have more of such a recording camera on cyclists, I'm sure I can capture, maybe equal amount or not more than the errant drivers. But of course, I'm not trying to encourage that. I think I also don't like too many cyclists to post, hey, this driver coming too close, hey, this driver there. I think we want to encourage that kind of environment. So that's for sure. As for you talk about this paying road tax, right? I think the reason why people mention that is because to me, I'm also a driver. Okay, I own a car. So to me, I probably feel that as a driver, I feel that I'm paying so much. I'm doing so much thing. I have to go through licensing, that kind of thing, in order to drive on the road. And you guys don't have to do anything, but yet you can still use the road. And the worst thing is that I feel that you are hogging my way, right? So they come from the angle, they come up with such a suggestion. But then I would say that firstly, I'm not going to go into detail to explain what is road tax. Okay, people can actually find out from the LTA website. They have a very detailed explanation of what is road tax. But I can only tell you that road tax is definitely not something to justify the use of road. Right? That means doesn't mean I pay a road tax, then I can use the road. That definitely. I can only tell you that is definitely not the case, right? But but the other thing is I'm more concerned is, do we as a society want to go into that stage whereby everything is being measured by money, right? So you pay, then you can use. If you don't pay, you're not supposed to be there. That kind of thing. I think it will be very sad after some 50 over years of nation building. Then we are progressively, we are progressing very well in a way, right? But the mentality of people are still staying at that point where you pay, then you are allowed. Then if you don't pay, then you're not supposed to be there. That kind of thing. I think it would be very sad. Right. So I really hope that we don't want to hit there and then start talking about paying road tax, all of that kind of thing. Right. And the last point, I think you Bobby, you mentioned about what registration licensing.
Correct.
So then again, I think we mentioned this in our last interview, right? Last talk. So again, I don't think of course, I would not know what is going to happen because currently LTA is doing the focus group discussion, the engagement with different stakeholders, cyclists, motoring group, all kinds of stakeholders. They are doing it. So after which, then they will have some conclusion from the discussion, and then AMAP will then look through it and then do a review, and before we make any recommendation. So I really don't know where we are heading to, what is going to happen. But from my perspective, personally, I felt that I don't think registration or licensing will help with the current situation. Okay, again, I want to say we have to look at what problem are we trying to solve here, right?
Definitely.
So as much as we think that, okay, I mean, we are going to solve bad cycling problem, but seriously, is it bad cycling is the problem? I think what we are really looking at is actually a road safety issue, right? So if it's a road safety issue, then you have to look again. The issue is not it's a concern not because it's an infrastructure, lack of infrastructure or lack of rules. So you have to address the problem accordingly. Okay. So if you stack up, 10 rules on this issue, you still may not solve the problem because it is a behavioral issue, right? So as we mentioned earlier, I think in both sides, I mean cycling or motorists, right? So they both have black sheep. There are people who the rules are there, okay? Say I take driving as an example. The rules are already all there, but you still see drivers break the rules, right? So you try and stack up more rules or what, you may not necessarily solve that problem. So likewise in this cycling issue, we see this as more of, to me, I feel it is more of a behavioral issue, right? People know they have to stop at red light, but they just choose to break it. So that is a behavioral issue, not an infrastructure or a rule issue. So with behavioral issue, I think the most effective way is actually through education. Change the education. Well, the education will change the perspective of things, the mindset, and then they will change the behavior, right? Of course, you stack up some rule, right? So to a certain extent, or with the penalty, with the enforcement, they will change, right? They will change. It will help them to shape their behavior over time. Okay, but in the long run, if you really want to talk about safer route, this sort of thing, I mean, better environment, I think in the long run is still education. Okay, registration, I think the last time we talked about it, how big the number plate you want to put on the bicycle. We are talking about bicycle, not motorcycle or even electrical bicycle, right? But the design is still different. So how big a number plate you need in order to be visible to bare eyes or captured by camera, right? Licensing, who do you want to license? Because we must understand that cyclists is not a homogeneous group, right? So unlike drivers, yes, you drive big lorry, small car, that kind of thing, you are different. But at the end of the day, you still use the same road, you still fall under the same rule. But for cycling, it's a bit different because you have the, like what just now we talked about, high performance cyclists. So you have sports cyclists, you have commuter cyclists, you have the uncle, auntie that ride to the kopitiam or the hawker center for food, right? The mother that fetch the kids to the school. So I also have seen before, as young as primary 2, primary 3, they actually ride alone to school from their home, maybe about 1-2 km away. Okay, so how are we going to say we want to license them? Do you want to license them all, or you are selective? Then again, selective is, when it comes to enforcement, it's a bit difficult. For example, you say, let's only license cyclists who ride on the road, right? So people who don't want to go through that will choose to say, I don't want to take the license, right? So I don't ride on the road. But there are places where you have no choice. You have to go onto the road for maybe a short stretch, even 50, 100 meter, that kind of thing. So what are you going to happen? So what happened is that you have people who didn't go through the licensing process, but went onto the road, right? And then you cannot ensure that these people who go onto the road will not create or endanger themselves or even other road user. So how are we going to do this? right? So it's very difficult even you say you do selectively, right? Or then if you license everybody, then your primary two kids or your 6-7-year-old kid that go cycling with the parents, you have to also take license, which I think is quite almost impossible, right? Honestly, I've seen in cycling groups, they posted picture, parents brought their 7-year-old, I think, 7-year-old kid, rode with them on the weekend, and the kid actually rode with the parent. First round was 60 km, second round was 90 km, completed, right? Which I think is a very good thing. So are we going to stop this sort of thing because we want to do registration, licensing, that kind of thing, right? So I think we have to really think very hard what we want to do with this, and not just jump in. Again, I think the other time I mentioned, the reason why people suggest this is because they are taking the motoring policies now, and then straight away just cap it. Yeah, because car you have registration, driver you have licensing. So they just take it and then cap it directly onto the cycling issue. So, but do we really able to solve the problem that we are facing, or is there a better way? So I think it's a lot more things that we need to understand and study, to study further, to before we can actually just jump in and say, hey, let's do licensing or registration.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so actually we have a few questions. I think this one, Mr. Steven, maybe you can just say out directly. This person, Kiki Sui, is asking, I am confused which traffic rule should cyclists follow. So there's a rule. We have our VP of Safety and Education over here. Can you state out the exact the rule that they should follow? Just a short.
Currently, on the
safety act, right?
aspect, broad aspect, there are currently two so-called rules governing cycling. One is the Road Traffic Act. So Road Traffic Act will be on the road, right? So on the road, you need to stop at a red light. You cannot go against the traffic, that kind of thing, right? So Road Traffic Act. So you look up Road Traffic Act for that. And the other one will be Active Mobility Act. Active Mobility Act, you go to LTA to search for it. So Active Mobility Act will be mainly on cycling on the footpath, cycling on the cycling path, like or PCN, that kind of thing, shared path lah. So those are the rules. So there are only two things that you need to look out: Road Traffic Act or Active Mobility Act, right? So the rest, I mean, it's difficult for me to go through everything, but generally these two you look out, then all the rules that you need to follow are there, right?
Correct. Yeah, I think
I
ask correct person already. Ask the correct person, correct time. Yeah, actually, this person Kiki Sui also have another question. I think both of you guys might be able to answer this. I think mainly this is related to the enforcement of rules on cyclists, because as we have seen, drivers, definitely motorists, there is traffic police that catch them. When it comes to e-scooter, e-bikes, there are so-called the green men that catch them. So, Dr. Xiong and Mr. Steven, what do you guys think about the enforcement of cyclists? Of course, we saw on LTA Facebook page recently they have posted quite a few pictures. So, what do you guys think about enforcement on cyclists?
So you want
to? I think moving forward, right, I'm very sure that from what I can feel and what I can see happening is that enforcements will be stepped up now. And from what I understand, enforcement will be stepped up both equally for cyclists and equally for drivers as well. I think on the short term, to achieve what the government wants to do, the short term for safety wise and to end the conflict between a lot of cyclists and drivers is actually there are enough rules as it is. Like what Stephen says, there's a Active Mobility Act and there is the Road Traffic Act. You must remember that both these acts, they don't contradict each other. They're all complementary and they all tell you exactly what to do on the road and off the road. So off the road, I know if you are speeding on National Park, if you go at 30 kilometers per hour on the park connector, somebody will stop you, and it's going to be that grow enforcement with the other different kind of clothes that you were talking about, those people who are on the park connectors. But I know if you beat a red light or if you cycle, in a big group, 3s or 4s, or if you do not stop or if you do dangerous things on the road, like cycling against the traffic, then you'll be a traffic police that will stop you. I think what we can actually see from now, I wouldn't say look forward to, but maybe it's something to look forward to, because you want enforcements on both sides. And then I think the climate will actually calm down a little bit after that. So we, as cyclists, most of us, I'll say that 99% of cyclists are actually all very law-abiding people. The last 1%, actually, within that 1%, most of them are also law-abiding, but it's just they do not know the law, unfortunately. So they do not know a lot of things. They go against they ride onto a highway, and then after that, they are stopped and they say, oh, we didn't know that. Or, they're cycling, against the traffic, and they thought, oh, it's just a short distance, I'm a bicycle, maybe I can actually do it. So a lot of them actually do not do it deliberately, but still, an offense is an offense, and maybe the best education is to stop all these people, so that with examples of this in newspaper and on LTA's website and all that, then people will actually learn. Sometimes you have to learn the hard way. Yeah, but education, I think, is very important, and enforcement is very important. These are the two things that we need to push forward. I think the last one, long term, if you want to improve, the mindset of people, so that takes a whole generation. I mean, in the past, I remember when we were young, there was this courtesy lion, when we were children. Finally, they retired the courtesy lion after many years. Yeah. But Singaporeans were not courteous then. And, we used to even spit, on the floor and things like that. Remember, they even had to teach you not to spit on the floor. So that took a whole generation. Yeah. So we need to start in schools now. We need to start with children. We need to start with people who, want to take up cycling. And, part of the course that we teach them will be actually road courtesy. I think you need a whole generation for that to happen before, people will love each other, and you see less of these videos where, it's all conflict and anger among. I think there was a question posed earlier by Tiffany. Yeah, I say, what do you think we can do to get drivers to be more gracious to cyclists sharing the road with them? It's a very good question. It's not only what we can do, because she said drivers post a lot of angry videos and hate comments on Facebook. But, I'm also on a few Facebook groups where cyclists also do post a lot of videos equally back as well. But of course, I see much more things on the driver's side. But like I said, these mindsets will take a long time to change. I mean, you don't lose faith. I think it will take time. We will see it, but it will be a very, very long time. I think right now, the immediate thing will be actually what you mentioned, enforcement, and it should come in a way where both sides are penalized. Actually, basically, anyone who breaks the rules should be penalized, and I think that will be the way forward for the immediate future. Yeah.
So maybe Bobby, maybe if I can add on, like to just now Kiki's question, right, about enforcement. So, like what Xiong said, on the road there will be traffic police enforcing the rules, right? So if a cyclist break the rule and caught by the traffic police, they will enforce it. On other than the road, off-road, footpath, cycling path, or the shared path, they will be enforced by Active Mobility Enforcement Officer, AMEO in short, right? That is actually commissioned by LTA. So what they do is they actually have a speed radar gun. So if, like what Xiong mentioned just now, you're speeding on the PCN 30 km per hour when it's only allowed 25. So you're speeding 30 km. So you're caught with their radar gun, they will enforce, they will penalize you. So this is what, in terms of enforcement, what they can do, right? So the thing is that a lot of, I think driver or maybe pedestrians also the same. People are always trying to, try to find ways to go around, break the rules, Hopefully, they always think I won't get caught, okay? But, sometimes luck will run out. But when your luck run out, you get caught is one thing. But if unfortunately your luck run out and then you get knocked down, I think that is even worse. So my advice is always not to try and try your luck and then break the rules, that kind of thing. Rules are there for a reason. Okay, rules are there. Actually, number one, rules are there, of course, is to keep things in order. right? For example, traffic light, traffic light, you're keeping things, after my turn, then your turn, that kind of thing, right? So that is, rules are there to keep things in order. Number two thing is that, and which is more important, actually rules are there to protect the user. Now, people, you need to understand that. Why I say that? Because when you get into accident, they will use the rules to determine who is right or who is wrong. And that actually helps to protect the user, right? So if you break the rule, you actually, technically, you are saying you give up your rights to be protected by the rule, right?
Yeah.
So don't always try. Another example is this. It's also for your own good. I will use the closest example everyone would know, COVID-19. So there are rules that say you need to mask up, but I'm sure we always see, people try to game the rule by, find some reason, bring a packet of teh and then walk around without the mask on, So yeah, you can try and game the rule, right? But you must understand that when you try and do that, you are actually exposing yourself to risk, right? Get risk of getting infected. So what we really need to do is to understand that why this thing is there, why you need to mask up, is the rule there. So you have to see it as a way of life, a way of doing things more than, I'm just trying to comply to the rule. If you think that way, then you will always try to game the rule, right? But so likewise, if you bring it back to road safety, you try and game the rule, yeah, fine. You as I said, if your luck run out, you get run down by a car or what, then if you're gone, you're too bad lah. Okay, so I think we really don't want to hit there and then try to game the rule, that kind of thing lah. Right.
Definitely.
So
I think the responsible thing to do as cyclists, especially if they are going on the road or what, basically must know the rules lah. Because so now you have already shared the two laws pertaining to cyclists, both on the pedestrian pathway and on the road. I think it's only responsible and right of cyclists to know the law, know the rules before they start. Don't go there then say don't know, cannot cycle on expressway, all this. Okay, so before we end, actually we have a more light-hearted question for both of you guys. Actually, this is from Desiree Yang. I know that both of you guys are cyclists as well. So actually, I don't know whether she asking for bike recommendation or what, but maybe can share with us what type of bicycles you guys ride. I know Mr. Steven has been riding since his childhood days, and Dr. Xiong also often rides as well. So maybe you guys can share what kind of bicycle you guys ride. Yeah.
I don't know, so
what bike do I use? I got a few. Okay, so if I'm cycling to the market or I'm cycling down to the hawker center, I would usually use the bicycle with the basket in front because it's more convenient. You can put all your things inside, and it looks cooler as well. And yeah, but please do wear a helmet as much as you can. I'm guilty of sometimes not wearing a helmet for very short trips, but I think I've changed my mind. Nowadays, I always wear a helmet. Then there are times when I ride in the park, for example, the trails, there are like Bukit Timah or the rest. I don't have a mountain bike, but sometimes I borrow one. But I do have a gravel bike, so I do ride inside the paths as well. Then most of my time I'll spend on the roads riding. So I ride quite a bit on the road. I think in a week I'll probably ride 3 to 4 times. Then that will be a road bike. Yeah. So road bikes are, I think a lot of us ride because we like to go fast. It's still safe. I mean, there's no road limit. There's the speed limit of 70 on the main roads. We won't reach it most of the times. So usually I'll use a road bike. Yeah. And what kind of bike do I recommend? Depends on where you want to go. If you're going to be mostly on park connectors and just for casual riding, then ride something that's comfortable. Road bikes are not so comfortable because it's a very aggressive position. So you could ride something that's more upright with a straight handlebar and with thicker tires so that you won't slip and fall, because very often on park connectors, some parts can be mossy, it can be wet, and then there are drain covers and things like that. So a thicker wheel would be always better. Yeah. The road bike wheels tend to be very thin. Yeah.
Very
so
thin.
Yeah, but if you want style, then of course there's Bronson. I can't promote a brand. There's also Turn, and I think there are a lot of very nice bikes nowadays. But I think
Cam
end of the day,
bicycle also, but today is not a promotional.
yeah. So
No,
end
I
of the
think-
day,
Yeah.
it's all in common. Like they all have two wheels, so anything on two wheels will work.
Yeah. I
Mr.
think
Teo, what about
actually,
you? Last time we didn't get to ask you what bicycle you ride.
I own I have now 3 bikes lah. So I have a road bike, which I would use most of the time. But then I don't ride as much as Dr. Seong lah. So I probably only once a week, that kind of thing. Then I have a mountain bike, but it's hanging there with a flat tire, that kind of thing. I wanted to use the mountain bike more for actually last time when I conduct classes, so I can, because we ride on the footpath. But then I didn't really use much. Then recently I added on a folding bike, because that's for convenient if I go around for checking some of the paths, that kind of thing. Because I do sometimes help work with LTA, or so when I check some path or what, I will probably easier for me to put the folding bike in the car and then I move about. But I think to answer that question, I would say generally there are few types of bicycle. So you have the road bike, which is more for sports. You have the mountain bike, which is more versatile. You can either go into the trail, or you can ride as a normal, commuting bike on the PCN, on the footpath, that kind of thing. Then of course, you have the hybrid lah, right? So hybrid, like what Dr. Seong just now said, is that it's more upright position, but then it has got probably gearing of mountain bike, or maybe even some change to the gearing of a road bike, which actually go faster. And then the tire are also slightly thinner than the mountain bike, but wider than the road bike, right? And then of course down to it, you have the folding bike, right? Folding bike, you have to ask Bobby, he's the specialist. So
Not today.
not today. So I think it all boils down to what do you really want to do for leisure, for sports, or for commuting. I think there will be definitely a bike that suits you. So I think you must first set what you want to do with your bike. Then you go into the budget. Then you look for something that is around there lah. So I think that's probably what I can advise lah. I'm not an expert.
Actually,
Bobby can say more actually.
Since your mountain bike is not in use, you can just give it to Dr. Seong. Full time. Actually, speaking of budget, someone asked this question. We won't answer it lah. But somebody asked, my wife asked how to keep all those bicycles. Many times people want to buy bicycle, the wife will.
That's a trick question. I know that man.
It always happens. Okay, so one way is to get your wife to cycle, right? To go into
my wife has more bicycles than me, so I'm quite safe.
No, but there are a lot of ways to keep the bike. So like myself, I also don't have a lot of space. So my road bike and my mountain bike actually have the bike rack, but it's a pole that I can hang 2 bike there. Then the folding bike I just fold and put aside. So I think keeping the bikes is also another thing to consider on what kind of bike that you want to buy.
Most important is whether the wife okay with buying the bike. I think it's a very good recommendation by Mr. Steven. Get your wife to go into cycling together. Okay, so I think today was a very, very fruitful discussion. Thank both Dr. Seong and Mr. Steven for joining us today. I think we have a lot of comments. Jonathan Chua comments something why you so bad. But thank both of you guys for joining us. This is part 2 of our future of cycling in Singapore. So actually we are asking different stakeholders about cycling in Singapore. I think Dr. Seong shared with us many interesting things, from high performance cycling, about how there's going to be a pathway, all the way from kids, they can train. So, actually those with a dream in Singapore that you want to be a pro cyclist, actually you can do so. It's possible. So we already have gold medalists and we have the whole foundation in place. You just have to reach out for it. And also, one very important point that I hope people that are watching or whatever, they remember, that this actually, we should follow the rules. You know, enforcement is not a bad thing. Enforcement just means, hey, you follow the rules, of course, good lah. We got more, everybody is more orderly. In the short run, this will definitely, I think, what Dr. Xiong shared as well, this will definitely help to alleviate the tensions between the cyclists and the road users, the other road users as well, if everyone just follow the rules. So just now, Mr. Steven shared with us the 2 laws. Please, I urge all the cyclists that are going to cycle on road, don't be blah blah. I know there's no theory test now, but let's not let's not think about all this. Please, yeah. Let's not go there. Let's not go there. So please, let's learn how to cycle, and you know, everybody coexist harmoniously. Okay, so with that, I would like to thank SCF today, both Dr. Xiong and Mr. Steven, for taking up, you know, their time for this. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, so
we want to thank Mobot for doing this, giving us the opportunity to share more.
In the future, in the future, we will definitely, you know, maybe we can get Dr. Xiong and Mr. Steven, even Mr. Dennis from our previous life back again. You know, of course, today is online lah. Maybe a few years from now, if we are still doing this, hopefully we can all sit down in person, get to really engage. Maybe by then, you know, riding in Singapore, you know, there won't be so many negative sentiments anymore. Yeah. So I hope all the viewers really learn something from today's talk. You know, if you found it useful, can like and share on your own Facebook page. If you have any questions, I think you can write down below. I'm sure Mr. Steven and Dr. Xiong will, you know, if they have time, they will also read at it. It's something to consider as well when we are engaging all the different stakeholders. Yeah. So thank you very much, everybody. This is the end of our live. Okay. So now, we'll end it over here. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.